Hey everybody, this is Louie, and
And I'm Sophia.
yeah,
Yay.
and welcome to our fourth episode, right, of GTFO. Get the fuck out. So
Yes.
yes, yes. So so today I wanted to bring up two topics that are a little near and dear to my heart. The first one is healthcare, and because I work in healthcare, Fia, you work in healthcare. We've
Yep.
yeah, absolutely, right. So we've got a lot of informations in our collective brains to share about healthcare. The second topic I want to talk about men's health, as well as just the status of men in our country and kind of talk about a book that I've been reading called The Boy Crisis. So first, diving into my topic on healthcare. I've worked in healthcare for a while now. I would say pretty much all of my adult life. Started, I think, when I was 22, 23, and I'm 36 now, so it's been a while. Uh, Working in healthcare, I've seen a lot of different things. Sophia, you can sympathize with a lot of this. We see a lot of different areas that don't really coordinate well, and they don't really talk to each other. And by that, I'm meaning care management versus prior authorization versus billing versus coding versus quality. We have just massive amounts of people working in healthcare, and we all do it in silos, and some days it's the most frustrating thing I've ever seen. I'm very much a holistic person, and for people who think that that word just means natural, when you hear about holistic healing, a lot of people think, oh, that means herbal therapy and and homeopathic medicine. It actually means
And acupuncture.
right, exactly. And the reality is, it means that you're treating the whole thing, right? That's really what holistic is all about. That you're,
That's right.
yeah, that you're looking at mental health, behavioral health, um, you're looking at physical health and how they all interact. You can look at one of the things about holistic, and one of the reasons it goes back to the naturopathic medicines, which is really the better term for things like massage and acupuncture and herbal medicines, things like that. The real big piece there that people forget is those have all been around for a long time, and they treat more than the body. And one of the things that we do in Western medicine, or what we're so used to in America, going to the doctor when you're sick, or if you're in a really good place, you go to, have an annual exam, things like that. But that's pretty rare, actually. Most people really only go when they're sick for most of their lives. When they get older, then they start going when they're on an annual basis. But even then, it's still a challenge for a lot of people. So
Yep.
yeah. So I guess, for part of me, I look at it as I actually went to school as for massage therapy, and I loved it. I loved helping people feel good, relieve stress, walk out of the massage clinic that I worked in, and essentially just be pain free, or reduce pain if they had pain. Um, I can remember one client that I worked on had pain in his shins and his calves, right? And his daughter had convinced him he needed to come in and get a massage with her. And it was so funny because he was like, the only part that I really want worked is my lower legs. I I was new at that point, right? I'm like, I'm still in massage school, working in the student clinic. I'm like, what the hell am I gonna do for an hour on this guy's legs?
Lower leg.
Yeah, lower leg, exactly. Not like
A segment of the lower extremity.
exactly, exactly. And so I did everything like 50 times. And at the end of the massage, he was so grateful. He said, "Man, that was great. My legs feel like they're brand new." And yeah, I was like, wow, that was great because, I didn't even, I didn't work on your back, which is what most people want. They were like
Right.
shoulders, and essentially it was just his legs. He was a very social guy. He chatted the whole time. So, I guess my whole point is I feel like there's such a missing element with our current healthcare system. That was such a great experience for that man that he was having this pain in his legs and they were sore or whatever it was, and having someone touch them and work the muscles and essentially wring the muscles out, move all the junk that was trapped in them out of the muscle fibers. It made
Yeah, and increase the circulation and just gave him new legs. That
it
was you.
Yeah, exactly. It made him feel super happy, and it made me super happy. Because again, at the beginning of that massage, I was like, "Man, this is gonna be stupid." I,
Yeah,
I had no idea how that was gonna turn out, and it was just great. I guess so. This leads me a little to a higher level on this topic, though. I really feel that if America did it right, or the United States did it right with healthcare, we would include things like massage. We would include herbal medicine and Oriental medicine, and or Chinese medicine, however, whichever way is the politically correct way right now. Um,
yeah,
we wouldn't exclude things like that because they have a real effect on people's lives. Um, I can
absolutely.
Yeah. Eh, I can tell you when I go to the doctor, I feel worse a lot of the times when I walk out of there. It
Yeah,
there's a major problem with the way care is delivered in our country, and we are so fixated on, yeah, it's got to be an MD, it's got to be a DO, it's got to be these PAs or NPs, or these upper level highly educated individuals who, quite frankly, a lot of them have forgotten what it's like to be around a normal person. They've forgotten,
right.
yeah, they've forgotten that it it's really stressful to just live in today's world. um I don't know.
Yeah, they detach a little bit because of the vigorous requirements that our USA puts on them and all their stress and the exams from top to bottom, the liability. It really hits them when they're finally rounding out their residency.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why they're a little bit complacent. And then most of them just take whatever job they can get or build their own practices, which is also very stressful these days. And also, the patients, the methodology and the so-called experts on running a practice or administrators who aren't doctors but went into healthcare administration,
Yeah.
they recommend things that are counterintuitive to an actual human. They do popular. It's like double booking, so you always wonder, well, why is my appointment at 3 but I haven't been seen till 4 or 4:30? Well, they're doing all kinds of staggered booking and tricks like that, that end up hurting the patient in the long run, and quite makes it patient being the best title for us all.
That's funny. It's
It's
true though.
true.
Yeah, it's very true because I can say it's always felt weird when I get into the doctor's office and they see me right away. That there isn't a delay,
Yeah,
there isn't an issue, that they're like, "All right, come on back," and
I
I
love that. It happens sometimes and it's awesome.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It really is awesome. I think it there is a lot of focus on that at some of the offices I've been to. I do remember a story a few years ago, where I went in to see my PCP. I think I had a sinus infection or something, and I signed in. The person at the front desk highlighted my name, which was their process when you were about to bring someone back. And so that someone highlighted my name, I didn't think anything of it. 20 minutes went by. And so I went back to the front desk and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to find out what the estimated wait time was because I've been waiting 20 minutes and I have to get back to work or whatever the issue was that day." And they fell all over themselves trying to make sure that I uh, felt important and that they understood that that was not okay. I mean, every person, the person at the front desk apologized to me. The medical assistant who did my rooming apologized to me, and then the doctor,
Wow.
yeah, even the doctor. I was really surprised when the doctor mentioned it because up until that moment in my life, nobody seemed to care when they were running late. So it was always
That's
very
right.
yeah. So and
You
I guess
said that was 3 years ago?
yeah, and probably more than that. It's
I mean,
probably
it is, they are stepping up. It is a business, it's for profit. And if a patient doesn't like you, they'll go up the street. So I think they're starting to come around to caring, but it's still left to be desired, much to be desired.
right, absolutely. And I think, for me, I look at it as I would have loved to do massage therapy for a
Yeah.
living. And I think when I
Yeah.
go back, yeah, when I think about that, when I think about how I didn't really have the opportunity to do it, one thing, so males who go into that struggle a lot. Maybe,
Oh,
yeah, maybe if you're like Brad Pitt, you know, you don't have an issue with getting clients, but
oh, come on. I
and
think most people just want to get taken care of, but I don't think about that. So you're right. Maybe a lot of women, which are the majority, probably percentage wise, who seek that service, are
yep,
more comfortable with a woman. So you're
yep,
having a struggle unless you can build trust, and that's hard to do beyond friends and family and pity clients.
yeah. Pity. Oh, so sad. No,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I remember it was the funniest thing because I was talking to, I think it was my dad, and he was like, "Oh, you you should only be doing massages on the opposite sex." It was the funniest thing, when I was talking to him about it. And then I talked to a different aunt and uncle, and they were like, "Oh, well, don't you only work on men, right? Because you're a man, you should only be working on men." So there's such misconceptions out there about who should be working on who, and the reality is you should be able to
Right.
work on anyone, uh,
Exactly.
I can remember, I mean, I'm a gentle soul, so 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 for me, I built up a good little client base at the student clinic, but the reality is those were all clients of the student clinic for a reason. They don't want to pay a normal price for a massage,
Right.
so after I left, I think I had one client that I worked on once or twice afterwards, but they couldn't afford $60 a pop, so that's why they were going to a student clinic. So,
Right.
but anyway, I digress. The reality is for me, I look at massages. When I'm having pain or when I'm really stressed out, if I go get a massage, I feel amazing. I feel great. In fact,
Yeah.
I could go to a doctor and be like, "Oh, my shoulders are so tight, they hurt." I could get a shot to a cortisone shot or whatever they not cortisone or is it? I can't remember. It doesn't
Usually
matter.
with morphine,
Yeah,
they'll drug
you
you up.
know,
They'll cover it up.
yeah,
They'll put a Band-Aid on it
exactly.
or suggest surgery like right away. Let me refer you to an orthopedist. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. All I need is someone to rub my shoulders,
Or
and,
ask the
and
right questions like, what, have you been
yeah,
doing anything retrospect and guide you in your health care?
yeah,
Not
right,
just
right.
be,
Yeah, I also think of it because I used to get pinched nerves in my neck
uh-huh.
at least a few times a year. And I mean pinched nerves where I would wake up and I couldn't turn my neck. I would literally be, a robot for several days after I woke up like that. After I started going to massage school and getting massage regularly, I have never had that happen since then.
Uh-oh, it works.
It
Can't
does.
have that.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you think about like what is a doctor loving about that, right? You know, you've got a lot of pain. You can get injections. You can take drugs for that. You know, they're not going to rub your neck if you walk into their office. You know,
No.
so I guess that my whole experience is I feel very strongly that especially if as a country we're ever going to get on universal health care that we've got to just diversify like nobody's business.
I agree.
There is, for me, I feel like if I could go get a massage every other week or even once a month, probably
Yeah.
it would just change my life. And right now I probably go a few times a year, and I don't feel like that's enough.
Yeah, it's not
I'd
it's
like
not working. The healthcare in the USA is not working. It's
exactly
not.
right, not working at all. And I think that one of the things about that too that I think about is I've struggled with depression in the past even, and if I could go get a massage and feel relaxed, and it's always made me feel better mentally and physically. There's a healing touch to an actual human being touching you in a
Yeah.
completely healthy way too, not
Yes.
you know not not sexual, just you know wringing out your muscles, moving
Right.
those fluids around. There's an energy in people's hands
Yeah.
that not everyone realizes is there. So
Are you aware that old school nursing orders would include, like, there's always ins and outs, so what the patient's eating and drinking and what they're peeing out, measurements and vitals.
yeah,
Are you aware that that used to be common to touch? They'd be in the orders, like very routine in old school nursing, and I don't mean old school like 1920s. Yes,
right,
but clear up to, nurses I worked with in my career, they said, I remember a time when they were actually ordered as part of the patient care to touch the patient, their back. So isn't that
yeah,
interesting that that was peeled away over the time, probably from some lawsuits. So let's be frank. I mean, a
yeah,
lot of the dysfunction is ancillary to cause and effect and issues. And in my experience in the trench, and I'm at a good solid 20 years this year, my career
yeah,
started in 1998 as a radiology transporter at Osteopathic Texas Medical Center. And of course, I uh, went right into a medical assisting role and helped with every clinic in the network. And so from back office medical assisting to relocating to Boulder and being a back office medical assistant, um, and then eventually doing hospital floor work where I was the unit secretary in med surge floors. And I've seen it all. Like when I was making babies and having babies, that was good work for me because I
yeah,
was
yeah,
able to leave and do shift work, 3 or 4 shifts a month, and be able to bring in extra money and be an integral part of professional support. And you learn a
right,
lot because I'm actually translating doctors' handwriting that the nurses can't read to their Caradex in English and then putting the orders in the computer for the techs to pull the blood. So from there, long story short, baby's daddy went to chiropractic school, and I truthfully didn't know what it was until about 3 years into his study. I went to a chiropractic presentation, and chiro means hand in Latin. And
yeah,
what I learned is, I knew he'd be a physician, but I didn't realize he'd be looked at as a quack or alternative right there with massage and acupuncture. But he finished the course and I learned a lot. And I started a blog at the time that I've since deleted accidentally, tragically. It had a good following and it was my therapy because I had no access to behavioral health and no insurance. So I wrote a blog called The Chiropractor's Wife that had a really good following, but I was really just venting about the whole experience from being at, in the front row seat to watching someone go through that schooling, coming to a realization of what even it was, to actually
right,
moving to open a practice and selling chiropractic in the communities. And that happened at the time that the banks all failed. So here we were, like, starting a cash practice And I was, you know, selling chiropractic and understanding it thoroughly. And I remember he went to a hospital meeting at one of the local hospitals and asked about, holistic integration, like you're witnessing that you wish you could kind of we can put that in. And the guy flat out said in front of a whole room of people and community leaders and healthcare workers that and lawyers, well, there's no money in it. And so, it's been a struggle just to like for me to be allopathically minded and witnessing all that in all the
Yeah.
areas of healthcare to being at the side of a clinician who was misunderstood. And those who got it really got it. They would go to a chiropractor, massage, acupuncture over a medical doctor any day because they just trusted the training. They do get as much diagnosis training as MDs. They just use a different tool. They don't use a pen and a paper, they use their hands. And so they deal completely with the spine and movement. And then most chiropractors have massage therapists in their offices, and if not, they have very close referral sources to them because those massages set the spine. And so, now I've been in the insurance side for about 5 years, and now I'm in that side of it. And so the dysfunction, there are just no words. The suffering and dysfunction and unnecessary spending, unnecessary process, communication breakdown, the silos you speak of that we all work out of wholeheartedly, and with no ability to improve anything really, but to make a difference in our own existence and our own roles wherever we are, and you there, me here, her over there. And
Yeah.
the horrible thought that if we weren't doing what we were doing, who would be? And it's disenchanting.
Absolutely. That's absolutely disenchanting. I I feel our whole system is pretty disenchanting right now, and hopefully things will get better sooner than later.
Have you seen things
Unfortunately,
that are just, I mean, without breaking HIPAA, but do you have a front row seat even now in the role you're at to just incredibly insane situations
yeah.
from
Oh,
whatever
absolutely.
angle that you're at, whether it's the provider or access, or is
Right.
it,
Yeah. No, absolutely. So my role now, I work closely with the clinics, and so there's a primarily primarily primary care clinics,
nice.
some special. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of what I do is work with them to make sure we're getting in our Medicare Advantage patients, and there's and a lot of that is really all about making sure that we're looking at chronic conditions on at least an annual basis. So I'm talking about chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, talking about diabetes, things that don't go away. HIV is on the list. Things that
Yeah,
once you're diagnosed with it, it's essentially with you the rest of your life. You will be managing that condition. Um, the the thing that I see that's frustrating is we have a system with tons of doctors that don't want to do it because they don't feel they're paid enough to do it.
right,
And the thing about it that's weird to me is what are they not paid enough to do when they're already in the New Mexico community, they're already making in the top 1 to 2% of earners in the state.
right.
It
Especially our state.
Yeah, we're a poverty state, and we've got people complaining. We've got doctors complaining because they want more money on top of the fact that they're already way out of the leagues of everyone else around them. It it's bizarre to me. I and it's not to take away from the fact that yes, you're a clinician. You're a MD, a DO, a physician's assistant, or a nurse practitioner,
Yeah,
or these highly educated individuals, and absolutely you deserve respect for that. But you also chose to live here. This state doesn't isn't flush with money.
Yeah.
We we don't have money coming out of our ears like Texas or California or New York. We are a poverty state with not a lot of diversity when it comes to funding. That
Right.
we we're mostly
It's
Medicaid.
predictable.
So yeah, yeah.
And they move
To be
out. So you're right.
yeah,
They end up coming to a realization, they finish their time, and we can't seem to keep people. That instability
yep.
disrupts the communities as well. Like the ins and outs, we're missing people's, we're missing in quality because of that phenomenon as well, all over the state.
Yep, absolutely. And it makes me sad because I really like a lot of the doctors that I work with. I think they're very intelligent. I think that the reality is this is it's a different way of managing patients. It's also a different way of getting paid. So again, for these Medicare patients, that's the way it's reimbursed is essentially how well do you manage their chronic conditions?
Yeah.
How many of them are you managing for each patient? And over time, that adds up, and that creates your that creates the payment. And if we did it well in New Mexico, it it would increase the funding for services and for care in this state that those doctors would make a ton more money.
Right.
But that's not reality. They don't want to do it. So to be blunt, they half-ass it,
Yes.
and then and then we end up with health plans just barely scraping by. And then guess what? There's not any money left, for anyone
Right.
because they keep their shit together. Um, and it's very frustrating to me that when I understand, it's hard for people to change what they're used to doing. Um, but it's a clear system that was actually developed by academics and clinicians at one of the big Ivy League schools. It's not like it was UNM,
Yeah.
University of Health Sciences. It was like Yale or Princeton. So some massively intelligent school, and it's not even new. It was developed in the '60s, and it's a very solid model. And it's just so sad to me that we've got these intelligent people that look at that model and they go, "Well, where's my cut?"
Yeah.
Instead of, "Oh, this is great," you
And
know.
they're not doing a good
And
job.
so,
I mean, it is half-assed, as you say, and I feel like a lot of those clinicians and providers, whatever the letter after their name, uh, they're too
yep,
scared to do their job. They're too scared to have confidence and really say, this is what we need to do, or they won't call it. I mean, have you read some of these lab results coming back? And maybe it's just in southern New Mexico, but when I was helping my dad and his wife dying, there was no solid. It could be this, it might be that. It's unbelievably unacceptable. Like we're paying
right,
for that.
absolutely, yep,
You're the
absolutely,
authority. We
you're
need
absolutely
answers, if you don't know, and we don't want to overtreat. So they're under a lot of pressure. I see all sides, but it could be better. I
right.
mean, just teaching Medicare to folks lately and Advantage plans that you're working with on your end, that's my bread and butter. And it's unbelievable to me how it could be simplified. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, just guys, like, there's A, there's B, and this year this and that, and, we have D, F, G. It doesn't have to be this way. Who the hell thought, oh, I know what we should do. We can compartmentalize and then we'll subcontract with NPPS and they'll do all the administrating, and it's just a
Right.
big mess.
Yep, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely
I
right there.
agree that great minds got together to do the process of quality, preventative. We know these proven things work, but there's a lot of corruption at the top. This big pharma mingled with this, that, and the other, and then Medicaid contracts, Medicare. Oh, by the way, this year Medicare, your colonoscopies are only needed this many times instead of that, and oh, you need your mammogram. These magical things that pop up, come and go, and new research. It's a little bit sketchy. Like, it's just not right. It could be easier. And it
Yep.
could definitely integrate things that people want and need, like a chiropractic adjustment a month or two, or a massage or acupuncture, and definitely caregiving, behavioral health. These should just be standard on everything. It's just disgusting.
No, you're absolutely right.
Don't get me
So
started.
I know. Get the fuck
Get the
out.
fuck out of
So
here.
yeah. So absolutely. So do you have any last thoughts on that topic? Because I'd like to move on to the boy crisis if you are
I'm
good with
ready.
that.
I mean, I don't understand why there are so many of us, an army of people in healthcare
Yeah.
from sea to shining sea, and we have yet to have any kind of power or say in the resolution of the healthcare crisis. It is a crisis. It's going to remain a crisis until we hold our leaders accountable, and yet we all know collectively very difficult to do. That's it. Get the fuck out.
Yep. Absolutely.
What about men's
Get
health?
the
Are
fuck
we
out.
going to talk about scrotums?
No, we're not talking about nuts today.
Okay,
So I'm going to do an intro,
nice. We're going to segue into a
right?
new area of this conversation,
Damn straight we are.
men's health.
I want to talk about something called the boy crisis. So, so I started reading this book called The Boy Crisis. It's written by Warren Farrell, PhD, and John Gray,
Hmm,
PhD. You may remember John Gray.
men are from
He was
Mars,
the writer. There
women
you
are
go,
from
Men Are From
Venus.
Mars, Women Are From. Yep.
Good, he went back to a topic he
So,
can actually stick to. He got a lot of flack for getting a divorce after those books became made him a millionaire.
yeah, marriage is hard.
Yeah, it's fucking hard.
I bet it's even harder if you're a millionaire.
Oh yeah,
Not
for
to,
sure.
not to say,
Anyhow,
yeah.
carry on. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's wonderful. So the book is really very interesting. I think I've gotten through about half of it so far, and I may be jumping the gun talking about it already, but I have to say I love it. So it's read by Dr. Farrell, the one of the writers, and one of the cool things about him is he was actually invited by President Obama to be part of the women. It was like the Council on Women and Girls, I believe, is what it was called. Um, and that was a council or some sort of group that was put together to address the issues that women and girls face in our country.
Huh?
Um, to yeah, I bet most people don't even know it exists.
No.
So yeah, so he founded that. One of the first things he says in his book is how when not doctor, when President Obama invited him to be part of this committee, his first question was, "Well, where's the one on men and boys?" And and the answer was very political. It was that they would need a whole business case or a whole reason why they needed to do it, and that would be a whole other topic, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I thought that's kind of a lame excuse. Um, I think one of the things that the book really does bring to light is even though there's a lot of women's issues, there's also a lot of men's
Yeah,
issues.
there are.
Yeah, and and some of the biggest topics. So I'm going to read through just a couple of um, the the synopses that, or a couple of the items on the synopsis rather that I found really potent. So the first one is. It's a crisis of education. For the first time in American history, our sons will have less education than their dads. That that's shocking to me. The thought of my son having less education than me. That's wow, wow. Um,
Yeah.
it's a crisis of sexuality. Sex is a minefield for boys. They're bombarded with mixed messages, afraid of being either too sensitive or not sensitive enough. And and to expand on that topic a little bit before reading the next one, I found or I find that that's absolutely true. Just due to even our media nowadays, we live in this world where I can't fucking believe, to be honest, that 50 Shades of Grey was a trilogy that
Woo!
made millions. Like it made so much money, and the whole thing, uh, so it's the BDSM lifestyle or whatever, and not to judge, but the whole thing is that is it's not a respectful lifestyle according to to a lot of different people. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but to me, like, that's a very mixed message for boys and men. It's like, do you tie her up, or are you completely respectful and you ask for everything every step of the way? And I guess you could do both, but but it's kind of a weird thing where it's like, are you possessive? Is it okay to
It's
be
a
possessive?
minefield, a
Is it
sexual minefield for
Yeah.
men out there. And that 50 Shades of
Absolutely.
Grey, I don't think men would go near it anyway. And it's for fun. It's just for fun. Those women ain't doing shit. I made a naughty bag right after I read that trilogy. And that naughty bag has so
Yeah.
much mint condition supplies in it and dust on it that it's a joke. And if I ever had a sexual resume that was a little bit of a bump and colorful, and every time I took that damn bag, it never got opened. So it's all a bunch of bullshit. But I'm a fan of those books,
Yeah.
but not for the same reasons that others are. It's just for fun. I've been to every movie. One of them, sad to say, flew to Utah to go to the second one with my girlfriend on opening
Oh,
day. But no, I
oh,
mean,
funny.
you're right. You're right. I need to cause it causes pause, and you said that was a potent message,
Right.
which is more important than being an impotent message. Ah. Anyways,
No, no, you're absolutely right. I think the biggest thing for me with those with those movies or books is, if the guy was, a 50-year-old man living in a trailer park, suddenly we're watching, a Dateline episode about, a crazed rapist instead of, a billionaire who, he just happens to make all the girls' panties
right.
drop and, convinces them to go to his
Who
red
was
room.
who
It's
was sexually molested as a teen by some, cougar, and
right.
that's sort of in there. There's a brush of that.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't know. So again, it's a minefield.
Yeah.
Like, you know that, and I guess that's just one example.
Yeah.
The, we live in that. We live. President Trump said the whole thing about grabbing a girl by her pussy, and it's like, holy shit! Like, that's the president that said
Yeah.
that, and and the reality is, again, I'm not judging anyone. Maybe some girls might like that. Some boys
Depends on how much
might
money the
not like
guy.
doing that.
It depends on how much money the man mitten has.
Right. Right. It's that billionaire versus
Hey,
trailer
women
park
gotta
again, right?
hustle. We're still behind. We gotta hustle. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you're crazy.
yeah,
You're crazy. So, and again, it comes down to, there's so many mixed messages out there that and I will admit, for me, I was beyond respectful. One of the reasons, I think I mentioned in my personal episode where it was really all about me dating. When I was younger, I felt really awkward around girls, but part of that was also because I completely was full of respect, that I was like, you don't treat women like pieces of meat. You don't treat them poorly. You don't whistle and catcall and grab them and stuff like that. And you know what? I also never got laid in high
right.
school.
I was gonna say. Let me
You know,
guess.
yeah, yeah. And so to me, it's again, it is a minefield.
Yeah,
It's a
women are
minefield.
fucked up. Like we want to be all independent and not be slut shamed, but we take our time to put our makeup on pretty, usually for ourselves. We're in different worlds. I think we want to be attractive in high school and beyond, and we know we're trying to look sexy or attractive. But I'm going to tell you straight up, men, gentlemen, we're not out there looking nice because we want you to fuck us. And see, that was something I had to learn, not no kidding, like around 30 plus because years old, because I think if people told little girls, like, because we have this innate scientific biology feeling to be attractive, like, and the men are going to be peacocks, and we're going to be hens. And there's something scientific behind all of that. That's a whole nother layer.
Right.
But women aren't out there to try to get fucked all the time. Now we're starting to turn into that, right? The hens at the club. It's because of that feminism, and we're like, hey, but on the other side of that, hey, we're fucking people, da 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 da, and then on the other side of that, it's like, oh no, so men can't win. Like it's really our fault. It is. It's mixed messages. We want respect, but the guys that give it to us, we don't want, and the guys that are disrespectful, we can't get over. It's just a fucking joke.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. All right. All right. So back to the synopsis. One of them. It's a crisis of mental health. As boys become young men, their suicide rates go from equal to girls to 6 times that of young women.
Oh wow.
And that doesn't surprise me actually. I found it very interesting recently. I saw it was at one of the women's marches, and it was about suicide prevention, and that too many women are killing themselves, and I do not disagree that suicide rates, they make me sad. When I hear them, obviously, I I've been pretty low before, and I've never gotten to that point that I could
Are you
think
sure?
it would be easy.
Are you sure you
Things,
weren't even
yeah.
at the point that's like, today's a good day to die? I mean, I'm not going to do it, but if a meteor hits me, I'm cool with it. Have you been that low?
Well, no, no. I think being able to accept that, yeah, if I got hit by a bus and died, I'm okay. Uh, that yeah, being like that versus, yeah, I'm gonna end this
It
is
is.
different.
But I mean, when you're low and you're like, God, I hope a
And
bus hits me today. Is that suicidal?
right. Oh, hey, I've walked out of meetings and I'm like, fuck me, just stab me in the
And you meant
face.
it.
But yeah, I'm like, I just like, if I died in the lobby
You're
right
happy.
now, everyone who was mean to me in that meeting would just feel
Yeah.
like shit, and that's not healthy. But but I guess the point is, to me it's sad that the mental health piece for boys is still so strongly macho and kind of just bullshit, to be honest, that young men are killing
Yeah.
themselves. Um it's really tough. So the next one, it's a crisis of fathering. Boys with less involved fathers are more likely to drop out of school, drink, do drugs, become delinquent, and end up in prison. That part was really interesting to me because uh, the book talks specifically also about how the group of men that really applies to. Well, it's not any particular group of men, but
Yeah.
it's very prevalent amongst African Americans. And essentially, if you look at, so we're nicknamed the incarceration
Yeah.
nation, right? The United States has more people in prison than like most all of the other countries combined. I'm totally making that up, but but yeah, but essentially, it's linked to most of these boys, or most of the men that are in prison didn't have fathers. They weren't part of their lives, and so they didn't have a real role
Right.
model growing up. And that's not to say, and that again, it's not just African American community. It's all communities, because it also goes to the drinking and doing drugs, and it's just a very
Well, even
frustrating
when they
thing.
do their time, we have a system that's set up to just fuck them over. Like they get flagged, even if they do their civil, if they serve their time, even if it's bullshit, they do it, they get out. They can't even begin to try to get back on their feet. I mean, they got to know somebody or be a part of a big metropolitan area with resources that actually hire ex convicts or whatnot. I mean, they're pretty much fucked. So of course they kill themselves, Come on. I mean, it's hard enough when you haven't been to jail.
Yep,
You know
exactly,
that kind of pressure.
exactly.
You're a dad
Hell
and
yes,
you
I
haven't
do.
been to jail, but it's tough out there. I mean, it's fucking hard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just the pressure of, I'm a single father, just the pressure of keeping everything together, being able to pay all my
Yep.
bills and my mortgage and care for the kids and, all that stuff. It's insane the amount of
Yeah.
pressure on, everyone, I think. But so one of the last ones here, so I'll read is it's a crisis of purpose. So boys' old senses of purpose, being a warrior, a leader, or a sole breadwinner, are fading. Many bright boys are experiencing a purpose void, feeling alienated, withdrawn, and addicted to immediate gratification. Compounding this issue are addicting video games that lead to distraction rather, and ADHD. I so that last line about the video games I find interesting because it's true. My age group is now like the leading age group. So men in their 30s, that spend money on video
Yeah.
games. Um, that's amazing to me. When I was a kid, fucking adults didn't play
Nope.
video games. They didn't care. Like they play with their kids sometimes, but now it's like it's about an experience. It's essentially a fantasy and an escape. And in those fantasies and in those escapes, you can be anything you want to be. You can be Laura Croft. You can be a soldier in how many different war video games. You can be in a fantasy game. It's amazing the number that are out there, that you can escape into. I don't necessarily know if I don't feel like video games are the only thing that distracts us. I feel like you could look at even Netflix.
Oh
You could
yeah.
look at self. Yeah, there's a million things, but yeah, that the book is really cool when it talks about that purpose void because it really talks about how like that quote mentions, boys used to be raised so they would become the warrior, they would become the sole breadwinner
Oh
of their
yeah.
family, they were going to fly. And and you coming from the LDS community are probably, it's probably one of the only communities that tries to push that. I don't know, and
Yeah, they do. They
maybe I'm
were, my brothers were all, my oldest brother is an Eagle Scout. I mean, the Eagle, the Boy Scouts of America and the LDS Church were in bed together for many years. They have since recently divorced them, which is a good thing, I think, because, well, the Boy Scouts of America became too big and corrupt money wise. But when they
right.
accepted gays, the Mormon Church had to disassociate, which I think is hilarious. But they should have disassociated a long time ago. I mean, we're talking about a coast to coast setup in gyms weekly where the Boy Scouts of America. I mean, you would get callings to be a cub leader, a woman, and, I dreaded that when I had a son. Now, we left the Mormon faith when he was 7, just before he was old enough to get baptized. But I was like, thank God, because I don't want to be a cub master and all that shit. And what's there for girls? Like, they had these little made up programs for the young women, but there was a disproportionate uh, to that. But we women, young women, grew up thinking these men we meet and marry are going to provide for us. And that's just not the case these days. I don't know why. All the women I worked with at, BYU graduates and a prevalent hospital in Provo, it was full of women who were on their, third, fourth, fifth, sixth child, working nurses and having the babies and maintaining the home while they had career student husbands. So this is a
Yeah.
problem, and I'm glad you're bringing it up. But I don't also think that it's so much, I can hear John Gray in my head at some symposium talking about that or reading that very line. And they don't understand that
Yeah.
he's older by a good 20 years than you. They don't understand the
Yeah.
phenomenon of being a child with the Atari or Nintendo. And then,
Right.
like, you're a grown ass man, but look at the Xbox One. I mean, Matt Man, my fiance, is, an NBA star player, And you know what? Women, it'll either hurt your relationship or help it. I mean, it's nice when he's doing that happily and I'm just able to do what I need to do. Um, some girls are way into it too. Like, really, they get all into it. But I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. I
Yeah,
think that it's very common to see experts, so called experts, criticize elements of our integrated technology and criticize it like, oh, these are bad. But we're just adapting to what is. It's not good or bad. But yeah, there's a problem though overall with the underlying message of the book. There's a lot to think about there. There is a disproportionate um, or inequality to the sexes, and it's alarmingly, the men. Yes, there are the traditional things to
yeah,
be mad about, the income, but those things are starting to become few and far between when we look at like things holistically. Let's just pull it full circle. There's a
yeah.
there's a problem there, so I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, thank you for bringing up the pay piece because that's actually addressed in the book as well. Because one of the things that, there's a lot of anger from, from feminists specifically about, the wage gap. But the reality is when a lot of the time when there's a comparison done between men and women in the same positions, women are actually paid more. And one of the things that leads me to also is even though we have like male nurses nowadays, right? There's still an interesting stigma that goes along with that for men, and that's something that goes into the book is and one of the reasons why the writer said, we need a council for men and boys as well, because, there's a lot of focus on women and equality and creating equality for women, but there's nothing that does it in the reverse for men. So for example, you get men, sure, that want to become nurses, but there's no specific activities trying to get men into nursing jobs. There's plenty of activities trying to get women into the science,
Oh yeah,
technology, engineering, mathematics jobs, the STEM job or
right.
STEMmy jobs. And so, so to me it's a very frustrating imbalance because, we there that those careers are still dominated by women. Nursing. Yeah, that's the only one that's popping into my head right now. But there's a few more listed in there. One of the things that I also found interesting was there's a note about how men, even though if they really want to be a stay-at-home dad and they find a partner who supports that, they could do it. It's almost non-existent though where a man actually makes that choice.
Yeah,
uh, the statistics support that most men only end up in that role after they lose their job, or for whatever reason their spouse makes more money, so they make a financial decision that he will stay home with the family and she'll go make more money.
yeah,
And so to me it's a very odd thing that, because personally, growing up, I was like, I could be a stay-at-home dad, I would
you'd be
kill
great
that,
at that.
like yeah, I love my kids. When they started school, they would have been freaking writing books, anyway, but that was not in the cards, but so to me that purpose gap in conjunction with the fact that, we're not adding to men's plates, we're just taking away, it's creating this hardship on men's psyche and what they look for in life. I don't know, so I guess I really just wanted to bring that up. I love the book. I love sharing my thoughts on it. I can't wait to finish reading it actually, um, and uh, and maybe we can do another little segment on that
All
in the
right.
future. But did you have anything else you wanted to
I
add
wanted
on
to ask
that?
you a question. When
Sure.
you think back on your, like, even childhood and your career, all of it, like a flicker of cards, do you feel like women are taking over the world.
I think for whatever reason, I've always been drawn more towards office jobs, things like that. You know, I So for me, absolutely. From what I've seen, so I've worked in healthcare, I worked at a bank, um, I worked at a movie theater. That role wasn't exactly female dominated. That was more of a mixed bag. Um, but definitely healthcare is very female dominated. Unless you're talking about the doctors themselves, there's still I would say shockingly, it still seems like it's more heavily male at that level. Although there's still probably more female nurse
Right.
practitioners, right? So that's kind of funny. Um, Overall, I think I think that I'd have to learn more about what's going on in other industries, I guess.
But just from your point of view,
But
you do feel if you're looking around the room of your life and your existence, did it feel like you were surrounded by women? Leadership, teachers.
yeah, I would say so. And I think the frustrating part for me in my life, is again always had great respect for women, treated them well, and didn't step out. It sounds a horrible way of putting it, but my behavior, I didn't step out of line with women. Um, I've always thought that, man, you got to treat women with complete and utter
Yeah.
respect, um, and and I treat men with respect too.
Not too much though.
Anyway, but
Not
I
too
guess
much. Just kidding.
no,
It shoots you in the
you
foot.
can't give them.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, you gotta draw
I've
your line.
pretended to be a
So,
guy
um,
recently. Not literally, but in my mind when I'm bored at meetings and looking around,
yeah,
everybody's women. It's women. And I'm frustrated for you. I
yeah,
put myself in, like, my little baby sister moved away to Bolivia because her husband, who was a PhD here, couldn't get a job and he blamed women. And I thought that was a little interesting.
right,
But as I kind of opened my mind and observed and pretended I was a guy looking through your guys' lens, it's true. Like,
yeah,
even, my own relationships with men in my life and our roles,
right,
women, like they don't have a chance in hell. And I do feel this battle
right,
of the sexes, but I do think we're focused too much on, look, it's mostly white guys at the helm and in the government. But if we
right,
kind of pull back the curtain,
right,
we've dominated almost every industry, even oil changing. I mean, the lady down here in Crucis is the manager of my Jiffy Lube. I mean, we are everywhere. And
yeah,
so no wonders men are in their mom's basements. No wonders they're emasculated. The mothers and women who have been forged from this fight from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this feminist movement with the pussy hats. I'm not
yeah,
condoning or not condoning it. It's wonderful. But that had repercussions and I'm suffering as a consequence because I grew up wanting the breadwinner and the Eagle Scout and somebody to take care of me while I
yeah,
did everything else. And I got the shit into the stick. I've
yeah,
done everything else and a bag of chips, earned the money. And I can't change that now.
right,
I'm broken. I'm never going to be able, even if I met money bags or Matt Man wins the lottery, I'm always going to be in this mode where I have to like work and it's just part of me now. And so I feel
right,
gypped, but I'm also excited for women, but I'm also sympathetic to men. From my point of view, even in meetings and such, I do feel like we seem to do a better job just even answering a fucking email. I mean, get the fuck out of here. A man will not pick up the phone or call us back in a timely manner, but a woman, we're on it. And I don't know, there's something aggravating in all sides, but also I have to say, if I'm being completely honest, women look around. I mean, statistically, there's more females than males anyway, like on the planet. So once
yeah,
we've hit that, 80s, 90s where the dads are MIA for whatever reason, incarceration or inability and, ineptness,
yeah,
I think I think there's
Yeah.
a reason all of us are so, you know, um, not by choice, but by necessity, bled into every doggone industry. And the men that have crossed my path in my career as nurses were better than the women by far. So, um,
Yeah.
and the
Right.
men that were with families, Mormon predominantly, they were all working towards something else, whether it was their nurse practitioner or nurse anesthetist. That's super hot right now. Nobody wants to stay a nurse. I mean, it's a crappy
Yeah.
situation to be a nurse in the United States these days. It's understaffed, it's
Right.
overworked, it's like a glorified waitress. The
100.
patients treat you bad, the staff treats you bad. You can't rely on anybody. I
Yep.
mean, it's just a big pile of get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have one more thought on this that I want to share. Um, one of the great little anecdotes in the book is about how men with this purpose gap, um, it creates this a lot of insecurities, and it is essentially creating these young men that end up shooting up schools and malls and doing stupid shit like that. Every single one of those kids can be linked to a father that was absent or not involved in their son's life. Um, and so so I was thinking about that, and I'm like, wow, that is really profound. That is really sad,
Yeah.
and and the reality is it's true. The thing that hit me was it was during one of the women's marches. And essentially, it was this lady with a sign, and she had this really smug face on, and she's talking, the sign said that white men make up, like I'm sure it was a real statistic, but it was a high number percentage of the of of terrorists, but they're not claiming those numbers. And I was like, so I was like, you fucking bitch. Actually, go ahead and read this
Yeah.
book, bitch. That was I was so pissed because the timing just turned out to be perfect,
Right.
right? It's, I read this thing, and then this lady has a sign saying this, and absolutely, she's fucking right. But the reality is, you shouldn't be putting it on a sign and traipsing around like men are just fucking
Yeah.
evil. The reality is there's a reason behind it. There's something causing this disconnect from reality for men and boys, and we've got to stop it. We've got to find this purpose. So, anyway, like I said, I'm going to keep going with that book, and I'll let you know how the
You
rest of
should,
it is.
Louis.
But
I mean, I'm feeling like you could lead a march, and instead of pussy hats, you can have dick hats. And I would be in that march, Louis. I'll be right beside you.
great, let's get some
Yeah,
dick
I want to get
hats.
some
We can
dick
do
hats.
it.
I gotta have to learn to knit though. That's
They're gonna have some big nut sacks on them, though. It's gotta advertise that
we
too.
have no exit music, everyone. So lame, lame, lame,
Hey, I
lame,
got one.
lame.
Let's do it. I got this. I got
We
it.
got some exit
Bum, bum,
music.
bum, bum,
Bum,
bum, bum, bum,
bum, bum, bum, bum,
bum,
bum.
bum. Thank you,
Till next
everybody.
time.
Have a great one.